He's an amazing artist, a very accomplished musician and composer. I think you guys have heard he's worked with some pretty prolific artists, including our very own Eminem, everybody from Johnny Cash to Nicki Minaj. It's a pretty incredible resume. We're very excited to have him here today, so thank you very much, Luis.
Thank you. So I try to figure out a way to start, you know? This is my grandma playing. We called her Feba. And she's passed now. This is from 1988, I think. And this is the first music, really, that I heard. It was her playing danzas in her living room in Puerto Rico, while my grandfather would sing Portuguese songs. And we'd all sit and, you know, listen to them, and it was awesome. And there's a whole second part. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is an amazing studio. I gotta start with that. It's, you know, talk about creativity and inspiration. I just look out the windows and I was telling someone it reminds me of being like on a beach, you know, on a shoreline, you know, some like water kind of stuff. Anyway, my name is Luis Resto, and I'm a dad, first of all. That's my main gig. And then right below that, or right beside it, I'm a musician, and that's what I love to do. And I've been really fortunate in just kind of having this crazy path that I've paved for myself, stemming from here from Detroit. And I'm really, I'm usually not one to be very, you know, loyal, to be honest with you. It's, you know, because I like kind of rolling with whatever's in front of me. But I've been to the coast, East Coast, West Coast, and I'm really proud to be from Detroit. I gotta say, because I think we have something that the other places don't. It's a certain grit, it's a certain mix, a great melting pot of craziness that comes out for me in my playing and my approach to things. And so this isn't at all how it's going to start, but that's how I'm feeling. So briefly, I started playing piano when I was 9, and as I said, my grandma was my first inspiration. Next would be my brother Mario. And he was the first one in the family to play an instrument. He plays guitar, and he was in rock and roll bands when he was 9. And he's 4 years older than me, so I'd watch him play and really wondered why he was enjoying himself so much. So I wanted to play something, and when I was 9, I asked Dad, and he said, well, Mario plays guitar, so you pick organ or piano. So I chose piano. And that was the beginning for me of my love of music, really, of playing. I played in Mario's groups for quite some time, his music, and we did every school concert, and went and played at Martin Luther King High School one time. And from Mario, I went to Interlochen and U of M. And Interlochen really was what kind of solidified it for me. I went to the summer session, and it's anybody who doesn't know what Interlochen is, it's this camp up north, and it's an international music camp, arts camp actually. And it was just life-changing, really. You have these forests with these rows of piano practice rooms right in the middle of the woods that you go out and you practice, you know, all day and night. No, not night, all day. And so that was an amazing summer, and that really told me I was going to really stick with the piano. I started doing session work around the 80s with Don Was. Oh, Here we go. Gotta use some pictures too. There's Don. He's now, at that time, he was heading this group called Was Not Was. And Was Not Was a great amalgamation of styles, and I appreciate it a lot more now than I did then. Because, I mean, I loved it, and I loved working with Don all the time. But I would argue with Don and fight with him of the reasons for doing things, and Don's genius is taking what has been done. Let me see what's happening. It's an alarm, sorry. And you know, bringing it into your own, you know, and we would do that day and night, do the midnight shift at Puritan and Water. It was my first time working in Detroit. I was raised in Garden City, Michigan, and it was just an awesome time with him. We'd kind of do the midnight shift into the morning, and Don taught me a lot about what music should be, and basically Was Not was just an open vat of creativity, of mixing jazz with funk, with rock and roll. And we did this brief 2-week tour of the East Coast and West Coast, doing all these small clubs, CBGB's, Whiskey A Go-Go, Mud Club, Roxy, the Spit Club in Philadelphia, and here, St. Andrews. And it was my first tour, and it was great. Then we did another one in '88, doing Europe, and that was quite an experience. I've never been a road warrior other than those two, and then more recently with Marshall, Eminem. All right, so '80s, Don. It was a time of doing whatever we wanted to do. We throw everything at the wall, see what stuck, what didn't. And for me, that's where I learned a lot of my craft, because I was pretty young, 18, I think I met Don when I was 18, yeah. And I was just starting in the Detroit recording scene, and Don's advice to me was, take every session that you can, you know, whether it pays or not, just do everything that the city has to offer, and you'll be the first call session player in a year, you know? And that wasn't at all the point for me. I just did what I do, which is at least at that time, I was kind of like the only kid on the block with a synthesizer, a polyphonic synthesizer, so that's, I'm sure, why I got the call, you know? And, but it was a time of Prince and The Times, and Rick James, and Michael Jackson, and you were, at least for me, you were either kind of Michael or Prince. I love Michael, but I love Prince's genius, you know? And so I'd argue with Don, you know, what's funky and what's not. And I thought what we were doing, I called it white chicken funk, to be honest with you. And, but like I said, I've come to appreciate it a lot more now than I did then, because for me, Prince was the thing. And, so yeah, we did a lot of work. Don was not the producer that he had become, the producer of the universe of Rolling Stones, of Elton John, of Bonnie Raitt, but at that time it Was Not Was. And yeah, let me play a snip of what we were doing then. The first tune that I ever worked on in a studio was a song called Wheel Me Out. Let me see if I can find it here. This is a big hit on Electrifying Mojo. I don't know if anybody remembers him, but he'd do crazy things on the radio. He'd play, he was a real fan of Prince, and he would play Prince albums back to back, you know, just all night long. He did what he wanted, you know. And so we were connected with him, and he'd play our stuff. And this was the first track that I ever was on. And what was great is that loop you hear, that drum, was really a loop. Like now you talk about loops and you talk about samplers. You know, you press the key and a loop that's already been pre-made for you. But when I came into the studio, the first time I met Don, literally, he had a microphone stand up, and at that time, we used tape. We used 24 track, 2-inch tape. Like, you know, the tape you see in cassettes. Well, it's 2 inches, so you can accommodate 24 tracks worth of information. And the way you did loops, you'd have a guy go into the booth, play, and you do it to another tape recorder, a 2-track machine, and you take that tape, take one long piece of tape, and splice together a literal recording of that drum that would loop around. And the way you loop it is by taking the tape, putting it on something physical outside of the tape machine, so that the tape is taut, and then you turn the tape machine on, and that's that drum loop you hear. He goes on ad infinitum, you know. And so it was pretty odd to see Don, you know. He gets me at the door, and we come running, come into the back studio, and I see this tape just running. You know, he's going, I'm putting 6 minutes of drums now. So that was my introduction. I was sold right there. You know, I brought my violin, I brought my OBXA, an old synthesizer from that time, and we recorded. And in fact, that upper shrill sounding weird, well, that's my violin, because I couldn't play it right at the normal level. So we did it at half speed so I could get by. Then we flung it up. And I felt proud. I got my violin on the track. So that played, through the summer. That summer was around 80, 81, I think. And so Was Not Was and Don Was, he was a big influence on me to the way I approach stuff. And that's to be completely open and completely, for me, invisible, to be honest with you. I like going in and feeling what's happening in the room, and I did a lot of it. That those few years in Detroit, I really worked with everybody in the city, Aretha, Earl Klugh, Anita Baker, and George Clinton, and really anybody who was around. And so I learned, and I would have to get into any style that was there and just kind of assimilate it. And I do that pretty well, because I think I don't have much of an agenda when I go in. I just want to play music, you know. And that fared very well. And then Don moved away to New York and then to LA. And I followed him to a lot of the work he did with artists in Europe. He met Gemma Corfield, his wife now. She was with Virgin Records. And that's the time of, let's see, Janet Jackson, who's the one who loved, Tina Turner. And so we were doing a lot of European artists, and Europe loves Detroit, you know. Anything funky, anything Detroit, they just went off, you know. So over there, you know, we could do no wrong. And over here, it was kind of like an underground following for Was and stuff. And but I did a lot of work with Don, and as he continued expanding, as I say, you know, the producer of the world, I was able to cross with people like really heroes of mine, Johnny Cash, and Iggy Pop, and Iggy was awesome. We were working on this movie Black Rain with Michael Douglas. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Well, he was supposed to have the opening song on that. And so my best moment with Iggy is he's on the couch after we do a take, and you know, Don's listening, he's at the board, and so it's kind of like this, you know, Don's got his back to him, and he's listening. He turns around to Iggy and goes, "Number 2, right?" You know, and Iggy's on the couch, and he just goes, "Oh yeah. Because, you know, number 1 was like that, you know, but number 2 was like that." And it said everything. It made sense, you know, to me. And he just goes, "Number 1's that, but number 2, yeah." You know? And it's, you know, an Iggy moment, what can I say? Then after that, it was a ride to a restaurant to meet with John Waters, who was working on Baby something, I don't remember. But it was funny to see Iggy with Coke bottle glasses, you know, just, you know, driving like this. And I asked him, I go, "Iggy, you know, it's you're, you know, when you're riding on stage and, you know, stabbing yourself with a bottle and stuff, that hurts, right?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, you know, I've done all the drugs and stuff, you know, false sense of superiority." And, you know, it's just, you know, kind of rambling, and it was great. He's just as nice as you'd hope him to be. So, Don settled in LA, was doing very well, and he invited me at any time to come out and check out LA. So I went out and kind of was in his backyard, which was a big backyard. He had a place on Mulholland Drive. Yeah, whatever that show was, 902 something. Well, he was up there, and he had the place next door as well. Place next door was the old place that Russ Meyer owned. So he had this pool that you'd go underneath this shed, and you'd be looking underneath, and those are the ones where he did the girls underneath and waving at the camera. And that's where Don stayed, and that's where I stayed for about 8 months, coming back and forth. My family was here. I didn't really enjoy LA, but going back to the Detroit theory, I played out there a lot, and I definitely saw and felt the difference, Because as I said, if I had to choose, I like New York over LA. But both of them have a certain slick, a certain tidiness to it. And musically, it didn't compare to me to what I was used to here. Because in all the session work that I'd done, I'd cross with Bootsy, I'd cross with George Clinton, I'd cross with, who was the rocker at the time? Can't remember. But it's just, it came out in my playing. It kept on being, obviously, that I was an oddball. But I liked, doing that, because I didn't really care to fit in to the scene. But I got a call from a friend of mine who was friends with Patti Smith. And he called and said, so how's it going out there? And I said, it's all right, It's actually right at that point, it would have taken off into being able to do a lot of session work out there. I was working with Trevor Horn, which, if you remember back then, he did Owner of a Lonely Heart, and his way of going about things in the studio was very meticulous. Everything in place, and 10 programmers at 10 computers doing it, handing it in, him coming in from the beach and going, how's things going, and I went from there then to a Don session, which is about all these human beings in a room playing together. We were doing the Highwaymen, which is Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, and Waylon Jennings at the time. And the difference is so huge. And I love both sides. I mean, that's another part of me. I'm definitely a computer geek. It's I have stuff here kind of to show you. Everybody's got the iPhone, obviously, and I love gadgets, and there's so many gadgets on here that I use in the studio as well. Here's Cosmobox. You get the idea. So, I love stuff like that, and I've been, part of the computer scene since day one, and synthesizers. But the differences between Don's approach and Trevor Horn's approach was wide and vast. And both sides, get my goat. I love doing the technical. I can be in front of a computer all day, fixing up a vocal, doing this. And then what I really prefer doing, though, is playing. And that's what I would do with Don. And it was great times. Anyway, I get the call from a friend who knows Patti Smith, and he says, you interested in working with Patti? And I wasn't sure if he meant Patti Smith or Patti Smythe, because remember, if anybody remembers at that time in the 80s, there was Patti Smythe, which had a band too, and it was current pop at that time. And no disrespect to Patti Smythe, but I love Patti Smith, because when I saw her Horses album, let me do this. I thought she just knocked me out at the time, and when she starts with Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine, when I was 13, and I was just kind of going, wow, something about this is driving me crazy, and then she rocked, and I saw her at Ford Auditorium with my brothers, and it was so weird at that time. Everybody, it was kind of like the punk ethic at that time. Aesthete. I mean, it was to like spit, on the stage. It was gross, So it's, I was 11 or 12, and my brothers are, shouting insults and stuff, and I didn't get it, But I loved her music, And who would have thought that then, 30 some odd years later, I'd be able to work with her as a fellow colleague, And really, Patti is, continues to be one of the high points in my career because of her humanity, her artistry, and her being, And I just love, I love everything about her. And so I really wasn't interested in LA, and I came back home. And that's, Patti had just lost her husband, I think about a year earlier. And we worked on this album together, which actually took me to New York, to Electric Lady Land Studio, the studio that Jimi Hendrix built before he went. And you can only imagine, a studio like that, you've heard all the stories, and I was a big Hendrix fanatic because of Mario. Mario loved Jimi Hendrix. My father was a surgeon. He took all of us to see Hendrix in 1968, at Cobo Arena. So that stays forever, and being in the parking lot, everybody doing Purple Haze with their car horns, this section now. And, we did this album, Gone Again, at Electric Lady Land Studios. Electric Lady, I'm not sure. And I co-wrote with Patti. And that was, for me, one of my first real co-writes. I co-wrote, I was placed on a tune called You, You, You with Was Not Was, but really My Madrigal, I would say, was my first real co-write with a major artist. And the sessions there were awesome. We did the album there, produced by Malcolm Byrne. And from there, I had to start a ad business myself, a music house, Monster Music, with my partner Greg Doyle. And it was I was in debt, and I had done a lot of ad work before that with Dan Yessian. I'm guessing you probably know Dan. And so it's, I couldn't ever fathom myself starting an ad business on my own, or a music house, because just the 9 to 5 I couldn't comprehend, But I had to do it, and it was one of the greatest learning experiences of my life, Great guy, a great partner, 50-50, and trust, never broken. It was awesome. In those 3 years I ran that, I got a call from an old colleague, Joel Martin, who he was the manager of Jeff and Mark Bass, and they are known as the Funk Brothers, who discovered Marshall Mathers, aka Eminem. And we had crossed in a lot of the session work that we had done through the years, but they had had huge success with the first Eminem albums, as you obviously know, and Jeff couldn't make it to all the sessions, Jeff being kind of the main co-writer with Marshall. So Joel asked me if I could do a session, and I didn't even know the name Eminem at that time. That was 2000, 2001, I think Slim Shady had just come out. And so I went, and we had chemistry, and it was great. I love working with Marshall. I continue to work with him. And we worked on D12. He gave me writers on that. In the music industry, getting writers and publishing, that's a main form of income. And so it was life-changing for me that he was nice enough to include me in that. And we continued writing, and then up came 8 Mile, where they were doing makeshift, they would set up, at different spots in Detroit to do the scene, and there was a makeshift studio that would go from location to location. So I got the call to work on a tune for the main song of the movie, and they said, Marshall has an idea, could you come out? So I came out, and when I came into the trailer, I heard the lyrics that everybody's come to know real well, but at that time, if you remember, you hadn't heard that side of Marshall. And I've always said I never know a hit when I before it's become a hit. But this, I heard, I just knew it would flip people on its head, because nobody had heard him be so positive and so, up. And we went into the track and we worked on it. He said, I hear this thing. Originally the track had all guitar chords, It's, yeah. Those were rock and roll guitar chords, you know, with the beat. And he said, it's just too rock and roll, you know. I want to build from beginning to end, you know. And my second instrument is violin, and I always think orchestrally because I was part of youth symphonies and stuff. So that's the way I approach a lot of music. And at that time, I think that's part of Marshall and mine's connect, was bringing symphonic stuff to his beat. And so I went to strings, you know. And so that's how the song kind of came together, you know. After it was done, then that intro went back, you know. Who would have thought that you know, the result of that was us getting this Oscar, you know, and got a Grammy. That's a Grammy, that's right. And then the funniest part of it is that if the war broke out that Thursday before the Grammys, the Academy Awards. So Jeff, the other co-writer, it was written by Jeff Bass, Marshall Mathers, and I. And Jeff was going to go out, but he had just had a new baby boy, and so he was staying home. Marshall never intended on going out because we never thought we had a chance in hell, you know. And so I went out, and my brother lives in Vegas. He's a plastic surgeon, and so I invited him to come up with me, and he was going crazy. You know, he'd look at everybody and figure out what they had done. And so we went out there, and you know, I went out. I was intending on wearing this. If you remember in Stop Making Sense, the David Byrne ape suit made out of grass. You know, remember his shoulders were real high. You know, he comes out like that. You know. Well, I had this suit from Thailand that a friend of mine gave me, flaming red. You know, and this. I thought, all right, you know, that'll be my thing. So I was staying at Don's, and he thought it wasn't the look, you know. He goes, come on up, you know. So I go to his closet, and, you know, he has the boots, leather boots from Mick Jagger, a jacket from Richie Sambora, the Ringo Starr shirt, and then some Love Beats, Hawaiian Love Beats, you know, total Don. And so he's dressing me, you know, he flips me this, flips me that, flips me that, and then the last thing he tosses to me is the Grant Hill Detroit Piston shirt, you know. And, you know, I have no, you know, no couth, I have no style anyway, so I go, yeah, sure, I'll wear it, you know. And he goes, you know, if you guys win this, Detroit will love you forever. You know? So I said, right, you know. So, kind of that morning, I'd seen his son grow up. I met his son when he was 3, Anthony. Now, at that point, Anthony's 26. So we're walking down, he's a real Eminem fan, and he's going, oh my God, you know, it'll be amazing if you guys win this. You know what, Anthony, if I do, I'll do a pratfall for you. Because I used to do pratfalls, you know, like Chevy Chase on SNL, you know, coming out and falling. And I'd hurt myself for him, but we would get a laugh, you know. And so I said, I'm going to fall, you know, if we win this. So I'm there, you know, with my brother, Tito, and, you know, I wore that. And he was chosen worst dressed in like three magazines along with others. And there's, you know, one, you know, when they have the comedians commenting, someone said, what happened to Cher on this or something, and it was good. I like that. But anyway, I went like that, and, you know, Barbra Streisand was the MC, and you can see her expression here.
And the Oscar goes to...
Now here, huh? Uh-huh. So when I go up there, I'm trying to figure out, am I going to do the pratfall for Anthony? And I'm seriously thinking about it. Other than that, I played all of her songs at weddings that I played at. And then she said, are you Louis Resto? Regret, you know, sort of. All right, so there you go.
Privileged, grateful to be anyway.
Yeah, that was interesting because, you know, it's crazy. You know, I'm going up there and really, I've done every gig in the book. Yeah, yeah. And I played so many of her tunes, you know, Evergreen, Memories, The Way We Were. And so to see Barbara Streisand, that's all that was going through my head, you know, oh my God, you know, the daddy-daughter dance, you know. And, so, and then after that, am I going to fall? And then I go, no, then I'm going to have to get back up. And then, so I go up there, and then you see her face while I'm going across the stage, and she looked fearful, you know. It's like, are you Luis Resto? And I go, yes. Anyway, I have to wrap up. That's, you know, we were real fortunate to get that, and I feel really lucky and fortunate to do what I do, because I really love what I do. And I continue to do it to this day, and I don't have any intention of really, you know, veering from the path. And I'll probably do better with questions coming up. So, you know, that's what I got to say. Yeah.
Any questions for Luis?
When did you cut your hair?
Well, that's interesting because, you know, I met Marshall with that hair. And, you know, in the rap world, there's certain, you know, I mean, the shoes are a big deal, or my lack of, you know, and when I walked in the studio working with D12, you know, they were all worried of what I was going to do the track because, you know, as I later come to find out, you know, they're going, you know, who is this guy who looks like Michael Bolton coming in and he's going to do damage to this, you know? And I'm sure Marshall may have been thinking the same, you know? But, you know, I grew up with long hair since I was like 13, you know? It started with my brother Tito, same guy I went to the Oscars with. He had an afro in the 70s, so we all followed suit. You know, there's 4 of us. I have 3 older brothers. So I always was used to wearing my hair long, you know? And it's obvious I have no notion of what's a good-looking long hair or not. You know, that's what I was comfortable with. So, to answer the question, it's, I cut it off probably 4 or 5 years ago when I dyed it a couple of times, you know? And I went gray really early. You know, I've been gray since, I think, 38, 39, something like that. And so my hair started becoming like these, you know, like kind of black, purple, brown, red. You know, you kind of have this rainbow effect in my hair, you know? And then it just became way too much work, you know? If I'm sitting in front of the mirror for longer than a minute, there's a problem, you know? So that's when I chopped it, you know? And at that point in time, it was real bizarre, you know? It's like there's gray mixed with the black, you know? And a friend of mine, good friend, you know, said, you know, are you going to give it to a raccoon family, you know? So anyway, yeah, it was about 4 years ago, something like that.
What are you working on now?
Now I'm working on my music CD here, One Small Light, and a collaboration with a friend of mine, Michelle Andonian. We just performed the work at the Eastern Market After Dark, right? That's what it's called. And it's lovely. Michelle's a phenomenal photographer, videographer, and she took stills and video footage of the DeQuinder Cut here in Detroit, and I have a loft at Eastern Market that I'm setting up shop in now, and we projected these images and videos on the wall, white wall, and then I was in white shirt, so that these images kind of like, you kind of saw through me while I was performing and improvising to the images. And it's an interesting kind of throwback to when I started playing at the front, my grandma, because she used to play for silent movies way back when. And so conceptually, that's how it got to what we did at the performing the cut, because it kind of requires almost no prep for me other than my gadgets around and then inspiration to hit, and it's a lot of fun, and then it kind of affects my writing, you know, for my music. So it's a nice thing. I'm enjoying it.
What do you think happened to film soundtracks? They used to be big deals, and it seems like now kind of forgettable stuff.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how to answer it other than to go to something I like, which is Jonny Greenwood let's see, There Will Be Blood, and then the latest, The Master, and and then Trent, on the Social Network. Those are, I just go to that because those are the ones I like, The other ones, I mean, it's tough, I've tried it, and, to get out of my commercial headset, like 60-second spot. I mean, I used to do the jingles in 30 seconds, and I got out of it because I didn't like what I would call like orgasming in 30-second and 60-second spots. It's like, wow, this is just like, I just can't. I got to do a song, It's a dun 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 dun. And so film, kind of, for me, I wasn't great at it, so I still kind of had that headset on. Oh, here's a running scene, a running footage scene, So it's and so to hear their approach, and especially Greenwood, which is so classical and kind of contemporary classical. I love classical music, and that's the stuff I kind of look at as kind of being the exceptional work happening now in film scoring.
Have you ever worked? Go ahead.
Yeah.
That's our next question.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And yeah, and that's what I like doing best, just off the cuff and playing, not thinking at all, It's, I do plenty of thinking to analyze things to death, and I've done that on productions before, where it's kind of really good at the box, and then once it's gotten through my hands, then it's kind of wrung all of its first thing, so I've learned, Which is interesting too, that I think in my time with Marshall, we've learned not to wring the life out of things, because we used to be real meticulous, and I mean, we still are. I mean, Marshall's extremely, obsessive on his vocal and stuff, and you hear the result, it's great. But when we're doing parts, whereas we used to like go, oh, let's try it again, never. It's kind of first take, best take, and more often than not, it's just, it always comes out and works out really well. So that is really what I like and enjoy doing the most, just sitting down and playing, whether it be at the seniors' home down the street, or my kids' school when they were growing up, or on stage with Marshall, you know, at the Bonnaroo Festival. It's, you know, it's just all different energies from all the different situations, and all of them are pretty equivalent to me, you know.
Have you worked with any techno artists from the city?
You know, well, interesting, you know, what is now tech now, at that time it didn't have the name, you know, and when we were doing our thing in the 80s, the other camp was Juan Atkins, Carl Craig, Derek Somerset. I'm blanking on their names, but, huh? There you go, Derek, yeah. And we were all kind of parallel, you know, and it was wild is that we were kind of copping from each other, because I talked with Carl and he goes, oh yeah, you know, I heard you on this and I got that, and I would kind of do it in my own bizarre way, you know, with my synthesizer, which wouldn't be termed as straight dance, but yeah, we were definitely influencing each other. And now with the Electro Festival every year and stuff, I go, oh my God, this is Planet Rock, you know, this is Africa Bombata, you know. I mean, we were on tour with these guys. You know, I remember hearing all that then, you know. So to answer the question, I find my son to be a real good electronic artist, you know, and he and I have collaborated, and he's real good at it, you know. So, you know.
Do you know what Don Wilson is doing in the city now? Is he done? I heard he had a building that he was building a studio in.
You know, I heard that too.
Okay.
There's never telling with Don. I heard from him 3 days ago via text. You know, I was trying to get a hold of him, and he was in the middle of New York. You know, that thing, and all he responded was, you know, the walls are swaying. You know, got to get back to you. Da, 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 da. And with Don, there's always a ramp up. You know, I'll get to him eventually. But you know, he's head of Blue Note now, which is really a perfect place for Don, if you ask me. You know, I'm sure you will see Blue Note just become another planet, you know, and it's great. You know, why wouldn't it? You know, it's one of the greatest jazz labels in the world, and that's the next phase, you know.
Did you produce a Stones album, and were you a part of that?
No, I've never been on a Stones album, but my advantage with that was that when I was in Don's backyard at his studio, I'd be out there and I could call the DATs that were around, because they always have a DAT running. So it's just amazing to put the headphones on to hear Keith and Mick, you know, arguing or this or that. They're just, you know, them doing just all these off-the-cuff things, and you're just hearing them do the day in, day out. But yeah, he did produce Doom and Gloom this last, I think it's a great Stones tune. And he was in Paris with them. He produced the last John Mayer. And yeah, where the Stones are, usually Don's not far behind. And then I understand that the day-to-day for Blue Note is like kind of a real new experience to just get it all in for Don, you know. I know he's killing it, but it's kind of different being the head, you know, of all that.
Thank you again so much. We're really
Thank you.
wonderful.